Is it a struggle? Yes, we have to realize our strengths and our weaknesses. Hi, and welcome back. This is Why Not? And I'm your host, Janice. We're here helping others to reach their goals by interviewing inspiring motivational guests with interesting topics that can help you get to where you need to go. Well, today's topic is redesigning your life. We have a guest who was on our show previously, Chanel Rosebud. She was on the show previously, surviving loss. She had lost her husband, and we were talking about that and revealing her emotions and her faith in God to get her through. Now, this show is how to redesign your life. So, how did she manage to redesign it after loss? Welcome to the show, Chanel. How are you?
Good, Janice. Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. And how are you?
Great. And thank you for coming back. Thank you for coming back. This is the second part of the show. And I want to talk to you about redesigning your life after loss. If you can briefly explain to our viewers the loss of your spouse.
Sure. I lost my spouse June 11th, 2021. He had succumbed to a failed heart transplant. He had his heart transplant May 13th, 2018. We celebrated 3 years of him having his heart, and the next month he passed away. He transitioned. It's been rough, and I am still in a grieving process, although I am very hopeful, and I've chosen to live in purpose and on
Yes,
purpose.
live on purpose and for purpose. Correct. Wonderful statement. And God helped you through that.
Absolutely. Um,
Now,
it was God. It was God. My faith in God, trusting and believing in God, and also the promises, because God has made promises, and
mhm,
they are written in His Word, and it's a reminder that what God says does not come back to us void.
does that come
And
back?
so, yes, so I stand on that, and He has been faithful. He's a faithful God. So,
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. As she said that in church today, will not come back void. And I have to remember that will not come back void. So then God, through all that pain, redesigning your life for something now of his purpose and promises for you. So you have transformed your life to you are now a relationship and self-love expert. You talk to people about loving yourself, loving God, and moving on. You're an entrepreneur and you are an author. You've written several books on this and helping people out. So, where does the relationship and self love come in?
my journey with my husband, being young, getting married young, and I was a teenage mother, and everything like that. I always knew that my life was not going to be what it looked like.
Mm.
And so when we moved to and relocated out of state from our hometown, I looked at life and I'm like, a lot of this stuff that we're doing is very toxic. Um,
Mm.
it's not, it was generational.
Okay.
There was a lot of pain and things that we saw that weren't right. We lived in the urban environments, a lot of which were, your low property environments. And
Okay.
so when we moved and we seen the environment was better, so it was a healthier environment. The employment was great. We just saw things a little bit differently than not a little bit, I'm sorry, more differently
Hmm.
than what we had exposure to. And for me, I'm a visionary, I'm a creative, and I am a dreamer. And I knew that there was so much more to my life, our lives.
Hmm.
And I was, I was a prayer warrior always. I still am. I
Okay.
would seek God and ask Him, you gave me all these dreams, you gave me all these visions. How do we change the trajectory of it all?
How
And
do
it
we
was through,
manifest it?
yes, and it was through my marriage. It was through, you know, um, God showing me how to love His way, and how to see
Mhm.
someone, myself as well, because it took self love. I had to remember to always love me first.
Okay.
Um,
And that was
and
probably from
that's
also taking care of your husband too, when he was going through the transplant and get the pacemaker and everything else, his
the
medical issues.
journey.
The
Yes, the medical journey.
Mhm.
It was a very, very, hard and long journey, but God showed up. He showed up every step of the way. And so I'm a writer. And so I started to write. And every time we triumphed over the challenges that we were having, I wrote it down.
Okay.
I was
Like
very
a journal.
intentional. Yes. I
Okay.
was very intentional about writing these things down because, one of since I was a little girl, one of the things I've always said was that my life was not going to be lived in vain.
Okay.
None of what we endured would be lived in vain. And so
Hmm.
I wanted other people to know that there were different ways to go about life and relationships. And if I can get through it, if we could get through it,
Hmm.
and truly find love and find wholeness and balance, and get rid of the toxic cycles and behaviors, that it's a beautiful thing. Love
Right.
is truly a beautiful thing. And so it led me to become a relationship coach and a self-love expert through experience, a lot of experience. I am a certified life coach.
Okay.
So I do have a certification,
Hmm.
but I'm one that always will say this: I am not going to coach, I'm not going to serve or assist in anything that I have not experienced myself. I
Okay.
cannot speak or teach from a place that I know nothing about.
Nothing about. And
Yes,
then even when you're speaking to someone, helping them out, you're calling on the Lord to help you with that.
absolutely.
Because the Lord was with you when you went through these things.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. And, one of the things about being a relationship coach or just being in relationships, a lot of times people look at relationships and they say they want it, but they're looking at it from a worldly perspective.
Mm, yes.
And so that's one of the things that, God has helped me and showed me how to love truly,
Mm-hmm.
how to understand what marriage really is and relationships really are. And they're bountiful and they're beautiful, but they come with a lot. The things that are great, the things that God wants for us always usually comes with some challenges.
Right. Everyone unfortunately has baggage or they have issues. They have those
Absolutely.
it moments. Right. Those
Absolutely. And then
hits.
the enemy does not want what God wants for us, what God is pleased with. He
Right.
doesn't want it to last. He doesn't want it to happen.
Right.
And so, that's one of the things that I try to hone in on when it comes to relationships is that when you take a look at someone, don't look at them from the worldly perspective. Don't look at them for if they're handsome or beautiful or nice built or any of those things. Those are pluses,
Right.
but they're not the main thing.
Those are things that the flesh are looking for. Our desires, our wants,
Absolutely.
like I
And they're
can say, they're
temporary.
looking for those, and they're temporary.
And
They
they're
need to look for the
temporary.
person's soul and who they are and their purpose and their life for you that God has sent them for.
Yes. Yes. That we are a gift to one another.
Right.
We truly are. And the most beautiful, beautiful thing is to see someone past the surface.
Mm. Wow. Now, do you recommend, like with relational coaching, do you recommend like people going through marriage counseling? And is it counseling with from a spiritual aspect to religious aspect with God involved?
I believe that marriage counseling and coaching, either one will be
Like
you know,
pre-marriage.
yeah, premarital. I believe that you can go through premarital counseling and or coaching.
Okay.
If the principles line up with God.
Right. Yeah, and
Um,
I think it would be better for people to at least you everyone's going to have our own little quirks, I guess we have to deal with. We have those it's and knowing these things and how to deal with relationships before you get into that marriage situation where it's not it should be permanent, but you need to know how to cope and deal with the person on a one-to-one basis. Know that you have the same alignment when it comes to thoughts, religion, spiritual, financials, and you know how to communicate. And that's the key. We have to communicate with God, we have to communicate with people, and we have to communicate with them as people instead of just what we want from them.
Absolutely. So I tell everybody that I coach or talk to
Mhm.
that it's not about you. And when I say that, I don't mean to neglect yourself at all. What I mean is that you all are for one another, right? And that's what makes you one. That makes you balanced. That makes you whole. And when people go in one sided or have high expectations for someone that they don't even know nothing about, and that's the thing. I think that that's one of the major things is when people get into relationships, they get into them according to their own expectations.
Correct. Correct. They want their own expectation. What can you do for me? And what do I want from you? Not what can I give or what can we do
Yes,
together?
together, correct.
Mm.
So I always say that yes, coaching or marital counseling is. I think you should. I think you should at least have a good 6 weeks of it um, prior to getting married. I
Mhm.
also believe that if you're wanting to date or get married or any of those things, that you date yourself first.
Okay.
Because if you do not date yourself first, how do you even know what you really want?
You don't. You don't. You got to know where you're starting from. You got
What do
to
you
know who
like?
you are.
Who are you? What do you like? What are your favorite things to do? What favorite foods do you like? What trips do you take? Are you an introvert or an extrovert? All of these things matter.
Right. And listening to God, what I do believe is wholeheartedly also besides counseling and just also going to God, the Holy Spirit telling you and advising you. He's our counselor, advising you on things. And that
Yes.
acting like we know better than God, which most people do.
Right. We get in our own way, right?
Right.
Because we want what we want and we want it now. But most oftentimes those are the wrong decisions.
Correct.
And so that's one of the things that I love about being a self-love coach and relationship coach because it does start with self.
Right.
Everything starts with yourself. Um, yes,
Right.
it's one of those things, and so that's what I do. I have selfless love lessons, books out, and I have Why I Love You. It's a relationship appreciation journal book, and
Okay.
all of them are on Amazon. I am getting ready to launch a webinar, and
Hmm.
it's going to be a membership based webinar, and it's called Love the Inner You. And
You
it
also do
touches
a
on.
podcast too, also, correct?
Yes, I have the podcast. It's Selfless Love Talk.
Hmm.
And it's a phenomenal podcast. It's a phenomenal platform
Hmm.
with amazing, amazing experts. Expert guest speakers that come on. It's wholesome. You can be your authentic self. And that's one thing about me. I thrive to be authentic.
Okay.
Why? Because the world is so full of everyone, trying to mimic the other one and
Mhm.
competitions and all of that stuff. And all you have to do is be you.
Now, you being an entrepreneur, you started most of this after the loss of your husband, or actually when he started getting his heart transplant. I thought you started doing the podcast, or right around that when he was having heart troubles. Correct?
But a little before that,
Little bit.
is how it got. I started with the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and again, it was based around relationships. To be honest, that's how the first 8 episodes started. Was based off of the book, The Selfless Love Lessons.
Okay.
And it started to grow and it became a place for me to have a voice.
Okay. Have a voice and share and teach, and experts can come on and guests can come on and talk also.
Yes.
So from there, what inspired you to do more? Did God lead you to do more than just the podcast? Because now the loss of your husband, you're starting to, God's redesigning you, getting you into opening your eyes for more stuff. Were you listening, following what God had promises for you, or what was nudging you?
So after the loss of my husband, I knew I had purpose in me, and I was introverted for the most part. So
Hmm.
I excuse me, excuse me, I always played it safe.
Hmm.
I always played it safe, so I was always in the background.
Okay.
And I knew it was time for me to come to the forefront and show up.
Wow.
Show up because it's important for me to share the testimonies from the test. For people to understand that, when you're used as a vessel of God, you have to be seen. We are the light,
Right.
right? And so I had to be obedient. I'm like, okay, I know that I'm still here. I know that, I still have purpose within me as long as I'm here. And I had to be obedient and show up.
Right. Which a lot of people don't understand that. Like you have your podcast, and even myself, I'm actually like borderline introvert, extrovert. I'm like 50% down the middle, and it's like knowing that God has a purpose for me doing the show is why I do it. But I'm more of an introvert. Like I like being behind the shadows also. So it takes a lot of strength and courage. And that's one thing that you teach people with the self-love is you have to pull in this courage and strength from God to go and do what he's called for you.
Absolutely.
So you also, besides the podcast, and we're going to go uh, all over the place in the sense that we're going to cover a lot of stuff. You've also came out with a fragrance. So besides doing the relationship and the coaching, you're actually making products too. God put that in your heart to make a product?
Yes. Now, I have been experimenting for several years, almost 4 years, working with just different oils, trying to figure out different scents and trying
Hmm.
to get the perfect, scent, right? And my husband used to look at me and be like, "What is she doing?" And
Hmm.
I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to continue to be obedient and do it."
Obedient.
When my husband passed away, I said, "Lord, I'm going to pick up this oil again." All I kept hearing was, "There's something about the oil. There's something about the oil." And I'm
Hmm.
like, "I'm going to pick it up again and I'm going to try it again. Lord, I need the perfect scent."
Hmm.
I
Well,
picked it up and I started again. And I created one signature scent at first called
okay.
Selfless Love, right?
So your perfume's called Selfless Love.
hmm
Okay.
So I have Selfless Love number one, Selfless Love number two, and then I have Selfless Love Cologne for men.
Wow.
They are all handcrafted by me.
Hmm.
They're oil-based fragrances, and they're amazing. And it was a part of a beautiful love story.
Wow. So you put the love and loss of your husband into a fragrance, a selfless love fragrance. Wow, amazing. I never would even thought to like mix oil or anything else. And that's what's a beautiful part of God inspiring you as an entrepreneur, helping people and just putting back even products that most people don't even try venturing there. And
Mhm.
that's what is a shame that, like we talked in the last episode, it was like you lost your husband twice. People let dreams and goals and visions and purposes that God has for them just die because they're too afraid. And being an introvert, that's something that some people just let things die because they don't want to be on the front. You
Right.
can't just typically sell a product and you're not, hey, here's my product. Or you can't go out there and be a relationship coach. Hey, I know how to be a relationship coach, but I'm hiding in the corner. No, you actually have to put yourself out there and show people and demonstrate and give the love that God has put in you to give it out to others.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I've been doing. I have had published books for a while. I
Hmm.
have had, several things out there. And it seems like once my husband passed, it was like it literally pushed me forward. I'm saying like courage, confidence, you know, everything. I just became a different person. And I'm embracing this beautiful woman that I am still becoming. But I have something to give.
Wow. So you took all that and transformed yourself and your business and doing obedient to God, everything He's telling you to do, and you're thriving on that.
Yes.
Wow. That's amazing. Inspiring, definitely. Um, Now you do the podcast. Why don't we start and you do the fragrance? Why don't we talk briefly on your books? I know you said you did a journal, and your journal we discussed before in another episode. One of the books for the journal was writing down or helping you write down the feelings and emotions that you were going through with all this with your husband, his illness, and just the stress on the family.
So the books, one thing about a writer is therapy.
Mm. Right.
When you're going through a healing process, right? It is very, very beneficial to write it down.
Mm.
You never know what your experience will do to help or save someone else. And so the books that I have are practical skills, right, that you can apply from day one
Okay.
and utilize them in your life, in your relationships or individually.
Hmm.
And one thing that also I want to touch on with relationships is that when you work, your coworkers, your managers, people that you see, your friends, those are all relationships.
Absolutely. Everyone you encounter and you start building a bond or you're around, those are relationships too, correct?
Yeah, so that I have beneficial things in each lesson, these little journal books,
Hmm.
um, that anyone can truly apply to themselves and to apply in their relationships.
And I'm happy you mentioned that because um, most people, when you think of relationships, is only a spouse, a girlfriend, a kid, a family member. You don't think about those relationships when you go to work. And those are the people you're with at least 40 hours a week with.
Absolutely.
You might be with them longer than you are with your spouse because you got to
Yes.
sleep and your children. You're probably with them a lot longer than we think, isn't it?
Yes.
And we need to get and have good relationships there because that affects us emotionally, spiritually, financially. Our whole world, in a sense, a good third of our day belongs at the workplace. And you
Absolutely.
can't get along with your boss, not going to work out too good. So, what's some tips to get along with a boss or a coworker at the next cubicle?
Absolutely. So I have a journal book out also, and it's called Value Yourself. Value Yourself.
Know yourself. Okay.
And it's a workplace journal book.
Hmm.
So middle school, high school, and I give tips and tools for working with your boss, coworkers. One of the things I would say is that always remember that they are people too. And when they are managing you, guess what? They have a manager too.
Right.
And so a lot of times things come from all the way up at a level to where nobody that works and is doing the productivity
Hmm.
is coming from people who are sitting at their desk on a phone with their legs kicked up, pretty much not doing anything at all, right? So I always say, don't take everything so personally. Do the things that are within your control.
Hmm.
Make sure you're doing your due diligence. I always say, work the things that you can work and get them done first, and then work on the things more challenging because that usually takes a little bit more time, right?
Right.
You are one that you like to go the extra mile. See if your teamwork, your coworkers need help. see if you can assist them. Sometimes there's struggling coworkers and they're not going to speak up, especially if if there's like a manager that's hard to talk to and things like that. So
Right.
just go to extra mile if you can. Speak words of encouragement into yourself and your coworkers and even your manager. Sometimes a compliment goes a heck of a long way.
Right.
Meet
Yeah.
people where they are. And that's one of the things I say. And you always, 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 always win with love. And what I mean by that is respect, integrity, humbling yourselves, and
Mhm.
just knowing that everybody is there to do a job, to take care of their own families at the end of the day. Don't take it personal.
Wow. Right. Don't take it personally. And that's what a lot of people do at work. And then you have the work conflict and unfortunately work violence sometimes because people can't handle the relationships they have at work. They're not understanding, like you said, that sometimes it's not from that boss, but it's a higher level that's coming.
Absolutely. And I mean, I've been through my fair share of corporate, challenges.
Hmm.
And that's again one of the reasons why I wrote the book was because I found myself in a place at times, where I had to make some tough decisions. But one thing I did understand and know was that I'm here to take care of my part of my responsibilities, to get a paycheck, to make sure that I am contributing to my home, right?
Right.
So I was not going to allow anyone to take that away from me unless God said it was time for me to go.
Oh, great.
And so when you're in relationships, work relationships, home relationships, you always have to remember to just process everything, reflect before you just react. Every action does not require a reaction.
Oh, I like that. Reflect before you react. Right. And most people, even at work or personal relationships, we react the minute someone says something. It's like boom, 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 boom. And it's like, what happened? It's
Yes. And then it's too late, right?
too late. The words
Yeah.
have already came out. Well, we only have a couple minutes left to go. Um, give us one final bit of advice on what do you think is the most important thing people should think about when it comes to any relationship?
I believe that everyone should think about love.
Mm,
And I don't take the word love lightly. I don't. What I mean by that is making sure that you are okay first, because again, you have to make sure that you're okay. So that's self accountability.
okay.
And then I say you go and you communicate and have the powerful discussions as the time is right. You have
Okay.
to make sure it's the right time, right? And just love, help, support. We are all supposed to work together. Nothing should be one sided.
One side.
Where one is weak, the other one usually is the one that's stronger in that area. So make it work.
Make it
Make it
work.
work
Make it work and make it and do it in love.
and do it in love.
Do it in love. This was a great, inspiring topic. I want to thank you, Chanel Budd, for coming on the show. We were talking about our topic today. Viewers was redesigning your life um, after loss. Chanel is a relationship self-love expert. You can look her up. We'll provide her information. We want to thank you for watching, the viewers. Please, thank you for watching. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, like us and subscribe. Thank you very much for being on the show. Appreciate it,
Thank you
Chanel.
for having me.
And good luck to your adventures and the next thing that promise that God has for you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.